United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I'd like to welcome all of our guests tonight. Mike, if you could please ask if anyone needs translation.
¿Habrá necesidad de traducción al inglés en esta noche?
Okay. Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I move to approve tonight's agenda with the addition of an additional item to item B3, board member reports, which would be a discussion on future safety forums, and add item G1, board selection of student representative to the board. So that would make all the other items in G move down a spot.
Okay, there's been a motion by Director Ashton to add an item to board member reports, and that item would be discussion regarding future school safety forums. And then you'd also like to add an action item to follow our executive session? Is that what your thoughts were?
To follow, but not under item G, so under adjournment, but unfortunate. I don't want it in executive session section.
Okay.
But it is an action item.
So it would be, we'd be moving everything down. We'd be adding G1 item selection of student representative, and then moving 1, 2, and 3 down to 2, 3, and 4 in section G, correct?
Correct.
Okay, did you get that, Talia? All right, is there a second?
Second.
And a second by Director Garza. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
There are seats in the front row.
What's that, sorry?
I just said there's seats in the front row.
It's weird, it's empty.
No one wants to be that close. Apparently it's our breath.
We bite.
Need breath mints.
Has the vote already been done?
I voted.
Yeah.
It didn't pop up for me.
I didn't, yeah, it didn't pop up.
Oh.
It was there and then it left really quick. There it is.
Okay. All right, now we will move on to recognition of outstanding achievement of students or staff, item B1. And so, I've been wanting to get you guys here for a while. So, I'm going to try to get this right, and I'm going to change it up a little bit with, we have a lot of students that are involved in band who went to that, so I'm going to actually let you name them off so I don't screw up a bunch of their names. But anyways, the OHS Symphonic Band received a superior rating with an overall score of 79 out of 100 at the annual CBMEA, I don't know what that stands for, I'm sure we'll get some clarification, High School Band Festival. Superior is the best, followed by excellent and good. This is the first time in 8 years that any OHS band has received a superior rating at a festival. So first off, congratulations for that. We always like an opportunity to be able to shake hands with any of the students who are able to make it, and you, and also get a picture with everybody. So we're going to come up around the front, and then I'll hand, if you could come up, I'll hand you the certificates.
Yes, all right. Jane Christensen, I'm just going to very quickly name all these. Evelyn Silva, Isabel Gonzalez, Jade Chapman, Georgia Bunch. If you're here, come on up. Where'd you go? She's here. Say Georgia Bunch. Okay. Stella Depew, Brittany Carvajal Ramirez, Gabriela Mora, Jaden Brown, Stephanie Arguelles, Amy Bates, Carlos Campos, Corbin Lawson, Samantha Lewis, Sarah Wilson, Vanessa Valentin, Edgar Mora, Jonathan Martinez, Alberto Gutierrez, Lane Simpson is here, right? Cool. Hang on to that. Isaac Valdez, Sergio Hernandez, Jack Gentry, Antonio Gonzalez, Kale Furman, Anthony Trujillo, Andrew Chen, Josue Medina, Ben Rocha, Joey Taff, Liddell Giles, Nick Haragi, Marley Askren, Aaron Wolfs, Jess Van Landingham, Stephen Aubrey, and Brianne Kent. I had 2 out of like 40. That's pretty good. Anyway. All right. Sure, yeah. So I'll share those certificates with them tomorrow and the next day. So the CBMEA is the Columbia Basin Music Educators Association, and they put on a festival every year for our region. And basically, our region we're kind of the north end of our region, I think, and then it goes down into Walla Walla, Tri-Cities, all those areas, and they don't really designate by school size. It's just your region, whatever size school. So we do compete against all the Tri-Cities schools for that as well. So to score a superior rating is pretty impressive as a 2A school going against these bigger schools with more kids involved and more possibility for good players is really cool. A lot of those schools have 3 or 4 bands. We have 2, so they're just much bigger than us in terms of that, but we keep up with them mostly. And going through my old records, this is the first superior rating we've had in at least 8 years or so. So pretty excited for that. Also, I want to mention, it never got really recognized, but Mr. Ludi and the drumline did get a superior rating at solo ensemble. That's also against the same group of schools on a smaller group scale. And they were the first alternate to go to state if the Chiawana High School drumline couldn't make it. So good job to them too. And the middle school choir got superior as well. So yeah, a lot of stuff. Yeah. All this stuff I can't remember. Ben Rocha was also in symphonic band, but he went to all state for choir as well. And Carly Provost. Thank you. It's okay. That's what I need. Anyway, so there's a lot of cool stuff going on in the music department lately and continuing. We're just starting to grow like this, so we're expecting much more in the next few years here as we continue growing and continue branching out.
On the bottom, push the button and hold.
Hello? Oh, there it is. All right. I accidentally pushed it. Anyway, so we're excited to continue growing and getting known outside of Othello and our little region here. And also getting a 1 at festival. If Washington did a state band competition like some other states, we would have qualified to go to that as well. So Washington just doesn't host a state level band competition at this time. So we're at that level, but we don't do that in Washington. So anyway, thank you for recognizing our 2 people at least. There's some other band kids here that weren't part of symphonic band, so thank you as well for your band contributions.
Just to comment, some of this information about the other band and choir information we just found out about right now, so we will be bringing them into to honor them as well. Okay, congratulations. Okay, we're going to move on to item B2, public comment. We do have one request for public comment, and that is Carolyn Herod and students, it says.
First of all, is that on? Hello?
I don't think so. See, I
Not
just
on.
touch and it'll,
Hello?
if you push and hold, then it'll come on.
Hello?
There it is.
Sorry, I teach reading. First of all, thank you for allowing some of my students to share their thoughts with you today. They're amazing kids, and I've had a great time this year being their teacher. You have a packet in front of you that is a McFarland Middle School newspaper and 2 essays from my language arts students. My journalism class publishes a weekly newspaper for our school. The students are always looking for interesting topics to write about that will interest their classmates. As you are aware, the school district has decided to eliminate McFarland Middle School, and this is where I have taught for the past 10 years. It has been a very unique experience to be a middle school teacher. Most people don't understand kids aged 11 to 15, but it's one of my most favorite grades to teach. Students grow in these years more than any other grade span. They grow developmentally, physically, and emotionally. Teachers that understand this development period about these students are rare, and they are also very unique. I'm always looking for real experiences to teach my students what they need to learn for their assessments, but also what they need to know about life. This topic of all schools moving to a K-8 elementary model is something I knew my students would be very passionate about. And so with the help of my 7th grade team, we chose to create an argument writing assignment with a prompt that says, "Will moving to a K-8 school model increase the learning of all students?" I've never seen such interest, passion, or conversation about a writing topic before. The first thing the students said was, "Will our writing matter?" In other words, will what we write make a difference? They asked who their audience was, and I told them that their audience was going to be Dr. Hurst and the Othello School Board of Directors. This was very important to them. They wanted to be heard. They were also disappointed to know that the decision was already made before their writing was completed. After hearing this, many students shared thoughts like, "What's the point now?" To this, I simply said, "You can still speak out and you can be heard. You shall never give up on how you feel." The students finished their writing, and it was fantastic. Some of the best writing I've ever seen. You wouldn't even know that these kids were the same kids from the fall. I was extremely pleased. The reason we are here today is because these students are passionate enough about their writing that they wanted to share how they feel with you today. They have never done anything like this before, and they are nervous. I'm very proud of them for sharing their feelings with the adults in this room. One thing to keep in mind is that I have never once shared my own opinion with my students. I would have biased their writing, and that would not have been fair to them. So what you hear today are their own thoughts. This has been a very powerful life lesson for these students. In order to enact change, all voices need to be heard, and they now have realized that they can and will share their voice in the future. The students you're going to hear from will be 2 of my journalism students, who are Elise Garza and Ellie Ashton. They'll speak first, and then followed by 2 of my ELA students will be Will Harvey and Felipa Casada. Thank you for your time.
Hi. So I'm from the journalism class in the 7th grade. So as you can see in the newspaper that we just passed out, Lacey Garza, another journalism student, and I did an article about the K-8 schools where we interviewed a lot of people, including students, teachers, community members, and I even did some of the people from the district office. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about the process of making a newspaper and why we should have a journalism class in our new K-8 schools. In our journalism class, we use our editing, story writing, and interviewing skills to put out a weekly newspaper every Monday. We have a girls team and a boys team that alternate putting out newspapers weekly. A few of the students in our class are concerned that having a K-8 school will mean not having a school newspaper or journalism class. A journalism class is something that I definitely feel that we need because it gives us students that have higher reading levels a chance to use our skills to a higher capacity. Journalism is not only challenging but actually really fun. We get to design and edit our newspapers and have fun interviewing people for our articles. Personally, I really enjoy journalism and feel that it really does challenge us students and teach us many life skills that can be life skills, like one being communication skills. Journalism is a project-based learning class, and we even get press passes, which allow us to interview people from the school during our school time and use our phones on school property. So we have a lot of privileges, and we get to use our technology to our advantage, which we definitely use wisely. And you can probably tell we're responsible with our skills and privileges because of the high quality of our newspaper. Another skill we learn is responsibility and teamwork. Each team chooses 2 new editors every week. So we learn responsibility as editors because the editor has to edit all the stories and enter them into the newspaper. And the teamwork skills come in when everybody has to have their article in on time, and it has to be good and not something that has already been done.
Going along with journalism and K-8 schools, I'm going to tell you some things that the student would be missing out on if we did not have journalism. So, like Elise talked about, skills that we learn and use in journalism, I feel that they are very important, and that is one thing that the students would be missing out on. Because without a newspaper, students would not get to use their communication skills to interview people. Or if they didn't need to write an article, they wouldn't need to be able to edit, or just little things like that. Like they would not need to work with other people or use leadership skills. Another thing students would be missing was having a higher level class where they can use their reading and writing skills to the highest extent. Because for some students, being in other lower level classes is boring and they do not get challenged. The next thing they would be missing out on would be the fact that we in our class really get to express ourselves through our writing. And we get to talk about not only things that the teachers think are important, but also things that are important to other students. For example, the new movies coming out or sports events at McFarland. The final thing that even other students would be missing out is that through the newspaper we are able to let other students know upcoming events, not only in the community but also in the school. We also tell the students things like new school rules, so kids sure would be missing out if we did not have journalism or things like a school newspaper.
So we know that the journalism has not been ruled out and that there's still a chance for it, so we're really just here to voice our concern about not having it, because we feel that because our middle school is going away, the journalism class will also be taken away. But we truly think that it is really important, and journalism is also something that's really fun, and it's an amazing experience, so we really need a journalism class that can put the newspaper out too. And it really lets us voice our opinions and use our voices. Mrs. Hurd doesn't even micromanage us. We literally do pretty much what we want. As long as it's school appropriate and not illegal, we... we write about our concerns and our interests and things that are important to us, so it truly does give us a chance to use our voices. It is a really good class for kids because we don't really get these opportunities in other classes, so I think that journalism should be something that we have in all the K-8 schools.
Can I ask a question or two? Is journalism only available currently for 7th graders?
Yeah.
So there's no option for 8th currently?
Currently, 8th grade is the yearbook.
Okay.
That's their elective for...
Yearbook is the elective for 8th graders, and journalism is the elective for 7th graders for those that are at the level that...
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
We run 2 sections, one semester, first semester, and then second semester. So they'll get semester of humanities and then.
Can you take the mic so that everyone else can hear that as well? I mean, everyone in the room can hear it, but
Sorry.
thank you.
Journalism and humanities go together. So humanity is one section, one semester, and then journalism is another semester, and then we flip the kids. So there's about 40 kids that are at that level to be able to participate in that class.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Felipe Quesada.
Can you move the mic a little closer?
Oh, sorry. Okay. We recently had a writing assignment in Ms. Harrod's class that was based off the idea of converting the Othello schools into a K-8 system. Through this, I have discovered that this is a path we as a district shouldn't take for the following reasons. What helped me decide to come up with this decision is how middle school has shaped me into a better individual. With classes like AVID that have helped me think about my future and career paths, and an innovative curriculum that Ms. Harrod is currently teaching have really helped me become a better writer and all-out redefined student. Another thing is that almost all the teachers at McFarland want you to succeed. The teachers here are constantly giving you advice about what it's going to be like when you're in high school. The whole idea of middle school itself is preparing us for high school. Middle school is helping students gain tons of different skills that are really going to be useful for life ahead. Being in middle school gives you the freedom to find out who you are and who you're going to be. A big reason of why I'm sharing my thoughts is because of my classmates. When we were given the news, almost all of the reactions were negative. So I've decided to step up and really describe my thoughts on why this isn't a good idea. McFarland Middle School stands out in various amount of ways, and we as students would kind of like to keep it that way. Middle school is honestly an experience no one should miss out on. Thank you.
Hello, my name is William Harvey, and I attend McFarland Middle School. Thank you for taking time to listen to my opinion. As a 7th grader at McFarland Middle School, I also have a little brother who is currently in 5th grade, and I am very excited about the change to K-8 schools. Since I've been at McFarland, I've been disappointed that there were no advanced courses for students who were formerly in the HiCap program. I hope that one of the new K-8 schools will offer core classes for the former HiCap students. Students. I also hope that art and music classes will still be offered for 6th to 8th graders, even though we are shifting to K-8 schools and it may be difficult to provide them. Thank you.
So thank you all for the comments. That was very brave of you. You were all very well spoken, and there is a process that we'll be going through, and I wanted to ask Dr. Hurst to explain to you how you can be part of the process, because your comments are all great comments and things that need to be considered by the adults who are making decisions. So, Dr. Hurst, if you could share with them.
Yes, I first would like to thank Ms. Harrod for allowing the students the opportunity to come forward, and the students also. Thank you very much. You brought up some very good points. I heard conversation about electives, journalism, yearbook. I also heard about a rigorous course of curriculum for high-level classes, and also just challenges around sports. And these are all legitimate challenges or points that you expressed. But I wanted to share with all the students here and those who may be listening that there is a process that we are implementing right now where all students, staff, teachers, community members, you can become involved. We have what's called study and research teams. We started a conversation with all the teachers and staff. That was our first step, and we shared with them about this process. What we'll be doing is getting information out to all the students, all the schools, on how you can join these study teams and research teams. And we want you to sit down with us, continue to ask all these challenging questions, and then we work together to research the solution, because people are doing it across our nation in K-8s. We want to be able to do that, and we want you to be part of that. So we just ask that you share it with your friends and your peers about, just be on the lookout for joining in with the study and research teams, okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well done.
Thank you.
Dr. Hurst, I have a question. Will AVID still be implemented through with K through 8?
So that's, I'm gonna let Pete Perez answer that question.
So just to provide some clarity around AVID, there are a couple of components or versions of AVID. There's a school-wide component, which is typically what happens in elementary schools. There's an AVID secondary component where you offer an embedded elective class. So what we will have to determine as a district is, where do we make that transition? Do we invest in AVID K-5, K-8, or do we continue with the current model, which is to offer AVID in those elective classes? So that's one of the research and study teams when we talk about curriculum continuity and electives and specials, those kinds of activities. They'll focus on some of that work.
Just a little quick question. I would really like to compliment you on taking this experience of going through a K through 8 and using it as a teaching material with your class. We miss so many opportunities these days with current problems and stuff to use the experiences as teaching opportunities, and using this I thought was just great, really good. Thank you.
Okay. So no other public comments that I'm aware of. So we'll move on to board member reports. Our first item is the statement by Director Jen Stevenson.
I feel like I need to stand up to say this. I feel like I need to make an apology to the community because I made a derogatory comment at the last meeting, the last public school board meeting, and it was not an appropriate comment. I was not targeting any specific individual or group of individuals. It was still not an appropriate comment, and even though it was not directed at anyone, it was still hurtful. And I wanted to publicly say that I apologize for that. I am sorry, and I need to watch what my words are better and be more aware of what I'm saying. So that's all. Thanks.
So thank you, Jen, and I'd just like to say that there's definitely times when I've said things in a board meeting that I wish I could take back. In no way do I think that represented your character or how you feel about anyone, and so I appreciate you saying that, and I'm sure everyone else does, but I didn't think that was a statement about the way you feel about anyone, so.
Right, thank you.
Would you like to wait for the legislative report, and we can come back to it?
No, I think I'm okay. All right. I've been doing a lot of studying on the legislative report and all of the changes that have happened with the McCleary fix. I do have, Dr. Hurst and I are going to be setting up a very specific meeting. So looking at salary matrix and making sure that as a district we are following all of the state new laws and rules with that to make sure that everything is in compliance that way, and that we are trying to offer the best options that the district can afford along with those things, because the district acts on the behalf of the board on those negotiations with teachers that are coming up. And there is so much information around that there was, like, from 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. some serious studying, because I couldn't sleep anyways, about that specific stuff, and it's just so complex. And that is honestly, I think for our district, currently the largest issues that we're dealing with that came out of this last legislative report, or last legislative session, is the McCleary fix and how we can make sure that we're best fulfilling the needs of our students, number one, and then all of our staff as well.
Okay, thank you. the next item, discussion on future facility needs. I just mentioned that we'll always keep this in here as we can have discussions. I don't know if the board's ready to have any specific discussions about that yet, and that's okay. It's still going to be in our board reports and discussions until we decide.
I guess
we'll
my
discuss it
feeling
enough.
is that we should table it until we have a really good idea of what Dr. Hurst is proposing for each school and the needs of each school as we go into K-8. Because to me, until we know exactly what's going to happen, what the shortage or needs are going to be at each school to go to the K-8, to me, that with this change, any discussion on future facilities needs to have information from the district as to, we have these schools, here's what we're going to do, here's what kids are going to be where, and how that impacts our facilities today. Up until then, I just don't see there's a real reason to have a lot of discussions until we're real firm on how that's going to look, and I don't know what the timeline of that is. I know it's an 18-month process to get the whole thing, but I don't know when Chris is going to know, or that they're going to have enough discussions to know exactly how the schools need to look between now and then. I would assume we don't want to wait till the week before school starts in 2018 to figure it out.
Hope not.
I do feel like that I want to specifically say whether the rest of the board agrees with me or not. I think that I am in support of bringing in more portables so that we can have lower class sizes and still accommodate these changes that are going to be taking place. I think that we don't need to, in making these changes, we don't want to walk away from having lower class sizes and the success that we're currently seeing with those. Personally, I am in favor because we don't have plans to accommodate all of the students that we currently have. Big changes, I guess, is what I'm saying without the bond passing. I would rather pay more money for more portables so we can have lower class sizes, even with the other changes that are taking place.
I personally agree with you, except for the only part I don't agree with is we don't know where to put the portables until we know the plan. Because it's depending on what happens next year and the year after. What I do know is it's really expensive to move portables. I found that out last year when we wanted to move a portable. It cost almost as much to buy a portable as it does to move one, apparently. And so we want to make sure it's in the right spot.
Right, but all of our schools are over capacity no matter what happens. Whatever grade configuration is there. And so if we put one at each school, that can't be detrimental, I guess is my perspective. And so I understand what you're saying.
What do you think, Ken?
Definitely, I think we were 18% over. Definitely, we were 18% over capacity already, and by switching the grade levels, that ain't going to change our room capacity. I mean, difference. It's not going to make our classroom sizes any smaller. But I think Dr. Hurst will be addressing the issues of the portables as further studies go on to find out what we're going to need. And I hope we hear about those as soon as possible, because it does take time to get these things in place. You have a very rigorous time schedule for this change. And in order for that to work, we're going to need to know this stuff as soon as possible.
Mike?
I agree. I don't think there's a wrong answer, but I am of the opinion, I mean, we've heard a few presentations to where at some sites there are some portables that are not being used that can be reconfigured to do certain things. So although I think we're all in one accord where there will be portables that will need to be purchased, where they're going to be and how the current ones are going to be used, we won't know until there's a more definite plan. But I think Jen's right and Ken's right. We are on somewhat of a time frame because of the nature of installing them and moving some that are going to be moved and things of that nature. But I do feel that there needs to be a more precise plan as to what it's going to shake out to be.
So I have a question for clarification. the 18% over capacity that Ken was referring to was in our bond campaign. We talked about that. Was that permanent classrooms, or did that include portables in that 18%?
I'm pretty sure that was just permanent classrooms and did not include portables.
I believe you're correct.
Yes.
So that's one thing to consider. I don't know if the board was aware of that. That was my thoughts too. That was, maybe the portables we have can absorb that 18% temporarily. I don't know, but I would say, what I'm hearing is that the board wants to table this specific discussion, but maybe we want to know by next board meeting kind of where the district thinks we're at with our needs for this coming year. Is that safe to say?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and what options? The last portables that we rented, I don't know that that I'm in favor of purchasing portables, but the last portable that we rented, I just looked at the lease and it was a 3-year lease, and I don't know if there's shorter term options or a year-to-year deal or what. 3 years seems like a long time, but.
Okay.
And I think
for where
possibly
we're at
we've
right
learned
now.
dry is not the best option, understanding that sometimes it's the only option.
Especially if you also have a water source to drink in those dry portables, right? That was a joke for anyone who was wondering. Could by next board meeting, we have some information?
Yeah, I was going to say, Pete and I
recommendations.
were talking that we will actually have a decision by next week, but certainly by next board meeting.
Okay. Is the board okay with that?
Thanks for the correction, Director Ashton.
Great.
That's what I meant.
So that specific item will not be on there worded that way at the next board meeting. Right? Board wants, okay. Next one, responses to questions for board docs. At the last board meeting, we decided to just kind of email questions to Talia to let board docs know, and I think she has some answers for us. Or Dr. Hurst as well.
They're
They're in here.
all in here. I read them.
That's right. So, weren't a lot of questions that made it there. I don't know, maybe we just didn't have that many questions, but do you guys feel comfortable with the answers? They answered your questions for you?
Mhm.
Okay. That was easy. Board retreat agenda items. So there are certain things that we talk about in each board retreat. I wrote a few down, and I captured some things that we talked about over the last couple months. We always do a board self-assessment. We always talk about the board calendar for the upcoming year. A couple of things I captured along the way and at our meeting today at noon was discussion about our school visit format, possibly changing the format of that. Setting up linkage opportunities for the year, which really is a calendar item, but it also is going to entail looking at the the linkage committee that Jen was on, and Jen and Ken both were chair of, that we'll bring up that information, so it'll be more specific. And then the student roundtable discussion that sounded like the board liked from the NSBA conference. So those are some items I have down. What I'd ask is if board members could, just over the next couple of weeks, email me other agenda items that are big picture items for planning for the year that you'd like to discuss at the board retreat. That would be great.
I have some other questions about the board retreat. So we travel on Friday night, it's all day on Saturday, we return on Sunday?
Some people go back home Saturday night, but others will return Sunday.
How long does it typically take to get there?
How fast do you drive?
Not as fast as you.
It's 210 miles. So it usually takes people 4 hours. It doesn't take me quite that long.
Let's not mention publicly how long it takes you.
18 minutes.
Okay. All right.
Anything else about the board retreat? Okay.
We'll still need to decide food, but I guess we do that by,
Usually Chef Rob just brings the food.
okay. I'm good with peanut butter.
Okay.
Usually Lunchables.
And dark
peanut butter and jelly
chocolate.
sandwiches.
Dark chocolate if you want me to stay awake, if there's no nap time scheduled in.
And a case of dark chocolate. You
As long
got
as
it.
we don't have to walk a mile each time to get our mail.
Or 12,
Yeah.
right.
The last item was added by Director Ashton, but this was the discussion regarding future school safety forums. This kind of came up today at noon, and so I just wanted to ask the board, do we want to go ahead and set a date right now, even if we don't have the specific format of what we want that forum to be for?
Yes?
Well, I think we should get hold of our school safety person, talk it over with him, because I know he's working further on the issues. I know the police chief is working further on the issues also, along with them. So I think we need to find out where they're at first, so they're more prepared for it too.
So are your thoughts that the next forum would be an informational forum to answer some more questions that might
Yes.
come up?
Yep.
So what would you suggest the next steps are, Ken?
Discussion with our department heads first.
Maybe get a recommendation
Get a
from them at the
recommendation
next
from
board
them,
meeting
yes.
of when they would be ready to have another
Yes,
forum?
I would agree on that.
Does the rest of the board feel
That sounds reasonable.
Tony?
Yeah, no earlier than May 14th, because the district is going to give a report on EL 20, which is the new student safety policy that we did. So I think just that report may facilitate some discussion.
Okay.
Right.
All right, so I guess the consensus is that just based on feedback we get back from the chief and Greg and anyone else who might be involved in that, of when they feel that would be a good time, but nothing within the next few weeks anyways, for sure.
I know for sure that the district has shared that the new student safety policy with all those individuals, because I've heard around that they've had discussions with the district, which is good, about the policy that we wrote.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure it was something we were discussing and that the community knew we were still discussing it. And okay.
I have a couple of things that I guess I should have put in my legislative report section. So WASDA, which stands for Washington State School Directors Association, their annual conference, I know that we've all gotten emails about calling for performances. And I think that we should suggest to have our percussion ensemble be one of those performers. I wanted to see what your thoughts were.
That's great. Do you need board approval to submit that, or can we just submit it as board members?
I don't know, I guess
know
I
the
just
answer.
wanted
I'm
to
just
I was thinking the same thing, but I was
see what
gonna
the thoughts were.
see what Hoffmeister thought about it, if he thought they'd be available to
Okay,
do it, but I think it'd be awesome if they could represent Othello.
right, because I think that this time is in Spokane, correct, in the fall?
Yep.
So a little closer for us as well. And then
Before we submit that, though, we want
Yes.
to know if they can commit to
so
it, right?
reach out to them. I have reached out to them. And they've already said yes.
Awesome.
So, okay. And then I've had a teacher from Alutacaga reach out to me. They're having a reading night on May 1st, and they would like to invite any members of the board to come and read to kids. It's from 5:30 to 7. It's an all-school activity. I did mention that that is the same night as another WASDA meeting in Moses. So we might be able to hit the beginning of that and then go or something, but I
Time
just
did you say
mentioned
what?
I would share it. She told me 5:30 to 7 is their reading night,
I think the
May 1st.
regional conference that we're going to starts at 6, I believe, doesn't it?
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
I think it's here
Starts at
listed, isn't
6
it?
in Moses Lake.
Oh, okay.
By here, yeah, it's close.
Right, if Tony drives, we could do 30 minutes and then, yeah, get there on time. Right. Thank you for pointing that out. Okay, I'll let her know that that will likely not work for us then. But that's always an option to request our presence at a meeting. Or something like that.
We'll move on to item B4, student representative reports.
Okay. I don't have a whole lot to report on. So, for Project Bridges, it's Monday, May 7th from 6 to 8 p.m. I doubt it'll take that long, but I just put that extra cushion time in just in case. I'm having a meeting with all the principals, which Vagara, he's been very helpful, and he helped me set up Wednesday, which is the 25th. Flyers should be up around tomorrow or Wednesday. Sorry, I've been really behind on that. I was working on my senior presentation. And speaking of that, senior
tomorrow night.
presentations are Tuesday and Thursday night. And this is actually the first year that the seniors are welcome to invite their parents or anyone who wants to attend and watch, which I think is really neat because you finally, like, my hard work, this is everything, which is really cool.
Do you know what that format is going to be like?
The senior presentations.
Yes.
So how I think they have it set up, there is about 7 kids to a room, and they're going at the same time. Mr. Vergara at 6:30, he's going to do a welcome, and this is in the evening, not in the morning, because some kids had that confused. At 6:30, yeah, they were freaking out. So at 6:30, he's going to welcome all the guests, and then they're going to separate to the separate rooms. And you're welcome to stay for all the presentations in that room, but you're welcome to also leave after yours is done. And each kid is given a 15-minute time slot where since we don't have senior projects, obviously, we're presenting our senior site visit and everything we learned about the career we studied. And then we have to talk about what we're going to go. So what college we decided to go to, what career path we're interested in now, how our site visit affected that choice, and different things like that. So talking more of real lifetime, how is this going to affect me right now, besides like a project that I did in the past. So that's how it's kind of set up this year, which I think is really neat, and it's going to be interesting to see how it works out. And so, yeah.
Is there Q&A? Do you know?
I think every
Okay.
student, our counselors have been really amazing, and they set up everything we need on our Google Classroom, and they set a template out of everything we're supposed to have, and one of the slides should ask for questions, I believe. So yes.
Thank you.
And then a recap on just what happened at the high school. Recently, we had Got Milk last Friday, and that was a really big success. We had a lot of student turnout, and it was really fun. And then on that same day, the leadership classes, all 50 students, we got to spend the day at Kiwanis Park, and we had a leadership camp sort of thing where we got to learn more about each other and different leadership techniques and how what we do affects others, especially in a role as a leader and setting up assemblies, how each kid feels and how to include more kids. So that was really neat too. But do you guys have any questions? Okay, that's it. I have a lot. Our first round of SBA testing went well for our school. That was last week. I hate math, but yeah, we got that done.
Love your honesty.
Tomorrow we start our ELA state test, which is English and language. I'm good at that, so we're good. This will be our first time our core teachers will be taking the test in classrooms instead of in our cafeteria like we've done in the past, and I think that'll be a lot more sufficient than going into the cafeteria because it's smaller, it's just more controlled. DOHS leadership students completed their last service project for the Garza family, leveled out their ground, double-checked and adjusted their sprinklers, obtained a donation from the Andersons Kentucky Turf, and installed the sod for the family. I don't know which Garza family, but they had a lot of fun doing that too. They'd come back all dirty and stuff, and they said they had a great time, so that was awesome. Leadership class continues their reading service to Ludakaga and Wahidas. They go and read to the kindergartners and first graders, and they really like it, and they get to spend time with the kids and interact with them, and it's really awesome. 3 of our students agreed to be a part of our K-8 coalition meetings. I don't know what that is. Preparing for Bridges event scheduled for May 7th, which I just talked to Kane about. And our migrant students will be participating in a migrant EWU college resource event on May 2nd. And then FFA got 8th in state for horse judging. I got to be a part of that team, and it was really, really awesome. And one of our members got 9th place out of 122 students. So he placed 8th out of 23 schools, I believe. We're also having an FFA auction dinner April 28th.
It's going to be at 7:30, I think. So if any of you would like tickets, let me know. Wasset had our last meet this weekend. Wasset is Washington State equestrian team for the high school. I'm also a part of that. Our team qualified for 3 team events, and then 3 other individual events as well. So they'll be going to state in 2 weeks. So,
Woohoo!
yeah. Any questions?
No.
Cool.
Thank you both. Okay. We are going to move on to item C1 then, required approvals. And I will entertain a motion to approve required approvals.
Motion to approve the required approvals.
Got a motion by Director Stevenson to approve,
I'll second.
second by Director Johnson. All in favor?
You're not going to call for discussion?
No, because you're about ready to steal my thunder. But go ahead, discussion?
Since you asked. It's great to see all the support here for the new Hiawatha
Stolen.
principle, should the board actually vote to approve it.
Right. There might be a mutiny.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to item D2. I'm just kidding. Someone jumped on me.
I missed that. Can we have a replay on that one? I missed it.
Joe, congratulations. Could you come up and please speak?
I love where I work. There's never a dull moment. Just want to take a few moments. It was well worth the hour to take a moment just to thank you for the opportunity to see your approval of allowing me the opportunity of continuing my work at Hiawatha. For those who aren't aware, the last 3 years I've had the opportunity to be the assistant principal and have served in that role, and very excited about the opportunity to work as the principal. And as part of that, I'm very much looking forward to making sure that the community is part of that, realizing we want to get more parent involvement. We want to hear more of their voice, whether we're talking about curriculum or policies, whatever it may be. We really want to work together in forming not just Hiawatha Elementary, but the new K-8 look as it may be. And we want to make sure that that's a very much an open door for those in the community, because we serve the families here. I look forward to working with the teachers as we serve students. That's what the work's all about, is really helping them to move forward. And we've done a lot of great things the last few years, and my hope would be is that every morning when a student wakes up, I know it's hard to get out of bed, it's hard to want to go to school and whatnot, but my hope is that every kid, when they wake up, they say, I'm excited to go to Hiawatha today. I want to go to class. I want to work on, you can fill in the blank. That is one of the aspirations that I have, and as we look at the vision, as we look at making some changes here in these next couple of years, as we move to K-8, Dr. Hurst has challenged us to take a leap of faith. We have the staff that's ready to leap. We're ready to make that work happen. There's going to be lots of great opportunities for growth and difficult conversations and whatnot, but we're ready for that, and we're excited for that piece. Because of the obstacles that we've overcome the last few years, we're stronger for that. And again, I just want to thank the amazing staff that is there. They make it a pleasure to want to go there, to dig into hard conversations, to laugh. I'm not going to say I cry, but I do see tears in the building once in a while as we see accomplishments. And I love going to work there every day. And again, I want to thank you for the opportunity. It's a big responsibility to lead a building. And I take that very seriously and think about that a lot as I push that submit button for my application. And I want you to know that I will give it my all to the staff, to the students in the community, and we're going to see some great things at Hiawatha. So thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Does the board have anything they'd like to say?
You don't have to leave. You can stay for the rest of the meeting.
Well, thank you, Joe, and thank you all for being here to support Joe. I know I for one, was excited to see that through the process that Joe rose to the top, and so I'm excited for you. I'm excited for Hiawatha. Okay? Now we'll move on to item C2. All right?
I'm good.
Okay. So there's a few things in here under superintendent comments. One of them you'll see is the Hiawatha Board site visit. So a little bit ahead. So in the process of realizing our calendar for May was off, typically, so the Luticaga site visit was going to be on the 1st, but typically it's the Tuesday before the meeting, so actually it should be on the 8th. Or sorry, not Luticaga, it's Hiawatha. Hiawatha is ready for us, though. They've already got the agenda ready for us, but we'll have an opportunity to approve in our calendar a change in that as well, so just so you know that. And that's up to the board whether or not they want to keep it on the 1st, but it looks like Hiawatha is ready for us on the 8th based on their agenda. Is there any questions for Dr. Hurst on the items that are in his comments?
I do. All right, let's start with cash flow. My questions were, I've got to find them. Can you go to page 10 and then page 11? So on the fees on the dental for both classified and certified are a certain dollar amount consistently. And then, so let me look at those and so I know what I'm talking about. Dental, the fees paid, I'm assuming for having this trust is consistently $2,500 to $2,700 a month. But the vision is consistently $1,000 to $1,100. Why are these so different in the two amounts?
If you can't answer that, Dr. Boda, then I'll probably have to get back with you
Okay.
on that, and I can research that.
And then on the last page, the trust accounts. The dates on everything here are 2013 and 2014. Also, they reflect the month of December of 2013. So my question was, were the dates just inadvertently not corrected to the current month to date, or are you giving us information from 2013?
You know the answer to that one, Dr. Boda?
Director Stevenson, we will look into that. This document was not submitted by me, but we will.
Thank you.
We will
Okay.
look into that and we will find an answer for you.
Great, thanks. Okay, that was all on the cash flow, and then on the gaggle, which I think is such a funny name, I have to be honest. It's so fun. Because a gaggle is a group of geese, and it's just a funny word. So it says that when they find some information about PSS or I'm trying to remember the term for what PSS stood for.
Possible student situation.
Thank you.
I just have to be looking at it. when
Right, okay. So it says when there is something found late at night that is a possible student situation, what is their definition of late at night when they would go to the police instead of contacting a site administrator?
Pete Perez is going to answer this one.
Gaggle headquarters, I believe, is in the Midwest, and so they have a bank of time. I believe it was 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., but they're also aware of our school hours. So I had an experience with a PSS situation, so it was about 7 o'clock in the evening. I was home and received a call from the Gaggle folks directly. So they understand what our school hours are. They have a list of contacts that they just go down, and if they get through the list of district submitted contacts and are not able to make
A live person contact in those cases?
a live person, and if they're not able to
Okay.
get a hold of one of the folks at the district, then they will call the local PD. They will call 911. So they show us the bank of hours. We submit the names and the folks that they should contact, including down to building administrators, and we go from there.
Okay, all right. So I guess it says that it monitors emails and Google Drives. Can you give me the layperson's term of what a Google Drive is?
It's the one that you see on your Apple iTunes account.
So,
Oh,
basically,
sorry.
every student here is given a domain name with OthelloSchools.org. It's based off the Google domain. So when you log into your account, you're given a Google Drive. Google Drive is basically a storage vault that students get to use to store documents, pictures, or whatnot. It's like their own. It's the own kind of storage where they get to do that kind of stuff.
It's a cloud drive, right?
Yeah, it's a cloud drive, correct.
Okay, so it refers to stuff that they store on there, not like YouTubes that they're watching. Is it also monitoring the YouTubes or other things that they might be watching at home? I guess where my question is coming from is, if they're not on the district's internet,
correct,
and they're on someone else's internet,
are
they still monitored?
Correct. So, we have a web filtering system that's on these Chromebooks.
Okay.
And doesn't matter what internet service they're on, whether it's their personal one or the school one, those Chromebooks connect back to our web filter, and they're still getting monitored that way. We also have the Go Guardian and stuff that also is another web filter, another layer of security that we have for the students, whether they're on campus or off campus. It also goes out there and monitors what they are doing.
Okay. Can you go to page 4 or 5? I wasn't sure what page this was on. The safety audit dates, I think go back the other way, right there. So it has the safety, the date range for email is started December of 2017, but the drive started September of 2017. So was the email not being monitored September to December?
This was a safety audit that was for free. So they just picked out a date range to do this free service.
Okay.
So they didn't go through the historical portion of it. They just got a blank date range just out of the top of their head. We'll just do these 3 months or whatever.
Okay.
And so that's what they did for us for free.
Okay, and that's where all of this information comes from, the 4 PSS and the QCons and all of those numbers,
Correct.
just from that range?
Just from that range. And that's combined. So
Right, from both Gaggle or from the drive and from the email?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And then page 8, the Gaggle response rubric. What? I couldn't understand what it was even trying to say.
So this is kind of like it's their rubric. So if a certain section falls within that rubric, then that's kind of the method that they follow.
So they delete it if it's...
So what the student sees on their end that is deleted, on our end we see that it's blocked where the student can't see it anymore.
Okay.
And so from there we decide what we want to do with it, whether turn it over to the police department or take it off of our system.
Okay, and when it says violation, meaning they've broken the rules of the Gaggle and they...
So basically through the documents that I submitted, it's a computer-based algorithm that goes and it scans. So a violation are a context of words, profanity, vulgar language. Those are the ones that are determined as violations. Once you start getting into the self-harm, the suicide, all the other stuff, then those get put into the questionable content or possible student situations.
Then how many violations does it take to move, for each student to move beyond the violation stage and into the QCon stage?
So it doesn't work that way. For instance, so if they are monitoring your email and you say a student says profanity to another student through an email, then what happens there is that the Gaggle computer will send them an automated message saying, basically summarizing what I just wrote up there was, don't be doing this this is inappropriate behavior. They'll probably get that message probably 2 or 3 times if they continue to use it. And then once it becomes an issue as far as using profanity in their emails, it will get sent to the building administrator to handle it. But they also scans the emails to see if there's, because sometimes students talk to each other and stuff, if they're having problems at home or whatever, and then they'll just continue to move that next step into the ladder.
Okay. All right. I think that was all of my questions.
Any other questions on superintendent comments? Okay, we will move on to.
I have one question. So obviously I realize if you're using a Chromebook, you're on a school Google Drive, using the school internet, kids should know, like, duh, you're being monitored. But, like, are they gonna be able, like, to have access to this just like they would a normal school disciplinary model? Like, they know if I do this and this happens, they know if I do this and this happens. Will they have access to this, saying, like, this is what happens if you use this on your, like, that kind of thing? Does that make sense?
Yeah, you know that at school, if you violate this rule,
Yeah.
here's the consequence. We actually had a discussion today with what we're calling a wellness team and a crisis response team, which is in response to the safety forum. So it's some processes we're putting in place. And what we determined today in our conversation is we'd like to talk with our building principals about just being consistent with we thought it was important to be consistent with our discipline matrix. So a student who has questionable content or inappropriate use of the system, that's covered under our acceptable use policy. So if they violate that, those consequences would be exactly what they are as stated in the student handbook. So it wouldn't be two separate versions.
Okay, thank you.
So just so I'm clear, this is not a discipline matrix. This is simply how Gaggle,
Works.
what they do with the content that they find.
Correct. They're just forwarding the information off to us, and then we decide what we want to do with that student.
So it wouldn't necessarily, we wouldn't have to, there's already rules in place for students. There's discipline in place. To be told that they shouldn't send profanity by email is probably redundant, right? They've already been told that. All right.
I do have a question.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
It's not about the Gaggle, but it's about, so we were doing research for one of my classes, and it was it wasn't really an educational site, I guess, but it wasn't anything bad, but it was still blocked, so it was really frustrating because I was trying to do research and I couldn't get the information. So how do you, I just want to know how you guys, like, determine which sites to block and which ones to keep up.
Well, so our web filter kind of does a wide range of stuff. So we're able to hit check boxes that says, okay, anything that out there that contains nudity, block it, or all that stuff. So we do have the check mark for educational. So if it's not an educational site, it has I wouldn't say a hard time, but it has some issues with this might be inappropriate for students type thing. So it is the possibility of it getting blocked. But what we've done is we told teachers, hey, students are having an issue with a certain website that they approve of. The teacher does. They send us a ticket, and we'll unblock that site for you guys. It's just communicating back to us that, hey, this is blocked. So, and we have pretty good turnaround time on those block sites because we know students need to do their research. So
channel that frustration into communication.
I like that.
Okay, if there's no other comments, we'll move on to item D1. All right, board response to monitoring reports. So the board probably noticed that the new Survey Monkeys for ANDS really are structured like our monitoring response documents, so it makes it a little it's a little easier connection for when we're choosing. Before, we just compliant and non-compliant, and Tony, I think, pointed out that that doesn't match our monitoring response documents, so it was a little tricky to try to fill that out. So with each of our, no matter what choice we choose in a monitoring response document, there's an expectation of a validation of your choice. So some kind of comment involved with that. And so you'll see it was the same thing with the SurveyMonkey. There was a comment expected no matter what choice you made. And it'll be like that going forward as well.
Just for ends, right, is what you're saying?
For ends. And there's somewhat, though, on GPs as well, because GPs expect the board to say, here's an area we're going to work on over the next year with each GP. So I think basically all of our SurveyMonkeys were built for ELs, because that's the only one it really fits into correctly. So you'll see the GPs and the ends SurveyMonkeys will be a little bit different. Also, I don't like the fact that the report we get for the SurveyMonkey, the results, doesn't say the overarching statement. So I asked that we include the policy itself first, so we can always refer back to that. So with that being said, it's also asked just as one question with an opportunity of the board to give lots of comment. But you can see the board is all over the place on this one. So this will be interesting, these comments, or this conversation. So it's not really clear there, and for the recording, I want to be clear about, hang on, apparently I just lost my authentication to the server. I'm logging back in. I want to be clear about what the choices are before I go through each board member's choice, because it just abbreviates it in the SurveyMonkey.
It's all the way at the answer choices. It has the whole thing, I believe. It's abbreviated where the colors are, but down at the bottom.
Down at the bottom, okay,
Right.
good.
Which you can't see colors anyway, so.
I thought it was all gray. Okay, yeah, answer choice. So the four possible choices are: superintendent has reasonably interpreted.
Will you read the question, I think? The overall question?
I'm going to read the.
Oh, sorry.
Just our choices, and then I'll go back and I'll read the policy. If that's all right.
Okay.
Might be backwards, but.
Sure.
So our choice that we have are: superintendent has reasonably interpreted the provisions of the relevant ends policy, and the district is making reasonable progress toward achieving the desired results called for in the relevant policy. The superintendent has shown exemplary performance in the following areas, and there's an expectation to list below. The second answer choice would be: the district is making progress toward achieving the desired results called for in the relevant ends policy, but a greater degree of progress is expected in the following specific areas, and then we would list the areas. The third choice: the superintendent has failed to provide evidence of reasonable organizational progress toward achieving the desired results called for in the relevant ends policy. Recommended follow-up action listed below. And then the fourth one: the information provided by the superintendent is insufficient for the board to decide whether reasonable progress has been made. Recommended follow-up action listed below. So the policy itself, ends policy 1 reads: in an environment of equity and respect, each scholar will graduate with the academic success and ethical behaviors to succeed as a responsible citizen and ready to compete in our global society. More specifically, and 1, which is academic competencies, each states that each scholar at every grade level will perform at or above the state or district standards in all disciplines, core and non-core. All scholars will demonstrate evidence of continuous growth and improvement in their performance year over year, closing the opportunity and achievement gaps. All scholars will demonstrate transfer of knowledge and skills across disciplines. So the answers were, all four choices were chosen. Actually, one for each except the second choice, which is: the district is making progress toward achieving the desired results, but a greater degree of progress is expected in the following specific areas. 2 chose that one. We have 3 comments of the 5, and so I'll just read those off. The first comment, and it doesn't say which comment goes to which choice, so board might have to help with this based on their comment. First comment says, according to these monitoring documents, there was no progress shown in a year-over-year format. There was progress in math and reading and/or ELA district-wide, but only a fall to spring format of this year. All documentation was only for math and reading ELA, none for any other discipline. Science was referenced, but no documentation shown. Can whoever put that comment say what their answer was?
That was mine, and I put the information provided is insufficient for us to decide.
Okay. The second comment states, thank you for setting a clear educational vision. I believe you are making progress towards making that vision a reality. We have a ways to go yet. I am encouraged to see so many STEM activities being implemented district-wide. It is also great to see an intentional effort to have our students prepared for kindergarten through increased opportunities in OSD pre-K program and additional resources committed to helping other existing pre-K programs. I was happy to see the intentional focus on helping our high school students stay in track by searching for early warning signs and being proactive with those students who need extra help. While it was not directly in your report, I would be interested in the philosophy behind only having students who are failing participate in student conferences. On the surface, that practice seems to indicate a belief that students are failing only for a lack of effort and not various other factors. I would like to see increased progress in the following areas. Increased proficiency in decoding benchmarks. According to your numbers, 60% of our students, grades 1 through 5, need to see more growth in this area to be prepared for middle and high school increased rigor. Increased proficiency in math. According to your numbers, 47% of our kinder students are current below established standards. Increased percentage of students passing all high school classes. According to your numbers, 34% of freshmen are failing at least one class. While the data shows a steady decrease of those failing over the year, it seems to be not enough of a gain. Assuming our freshman class is 300 students, that would equate to just over 100 students not passing at least one class. We need to gain vast improvements here to impact our dropout rate and graduation rates. Once again, I believe you are getting the foundation of our district solid so we can really make strides toward helping our students be prepared for a successful career after their formal education is complete, etc.
Sounds like you type stuff on your iPad.
I look forward to your continued leadership and vision as we, together as a community, make progress in this great endeavor. I take it that was Tony's. Hey, Tony, which choice did you have?
I had the second choice from the top.
Number 2, okay. Last item says, while there was some evidence of progress in certain areas for the current school year, I did not see data that compared this year to last year. I feel that this is important to determine if the district is making progress toward each scholar performing at or above state or district standards. I also was not able to see the comparison to the state standards. Could not see from the data if there was growth from year to year for students. Maybe I'm not reading the data correctly, but which chart specifically addressed and showed a closing of the opportunity and achievement gaps? It looks like comparisons were by school, but not by subgroups. That was my comment. And then after I read it later, I don't know why I even brought up the subgroups. I think that's something in the past we've talked about, but I chose 3. So we have 2, 3, and 4 based on our comments. And then I take it then Ken and Mike, you didn't make comments.
I chose 2, but did not make a comment.
Okay. And Ken, then you chose 1?
I chose 1, but
All right.
did not have a comment.
So obviously we have differing opinions of what it would be. One thing I would remind the board is that the bulk of our board meetings, as stated in policy, should be on linking with our community and focusing on the future and not the past. And so I think we need to come to a reasonable conclusion on this that we agree to together, but our real focus should be what can we do to set the expectation for what we do want to see in the future, rather than talk about too much about the past. I mean, we have to talk somewhat about the past because that's what we just evaluated, but does that make sense what I'm saying? Our focus really should be what are we going to do going forward, and how are we going to help Dr. Hurst understand what it is we're looking for and expecting. Am I clear with that? Anyone have any disagreements with that?
I think that if not all of us said the year-to-year section was lacking here. And so I think that that's pretty clear that that part was a gap in what was presented to us.
Yeah, and I think, personally, I think it was clear in the policy that that was an expectation. What I'd like to see, maybe if Dr. Hurst could kind of, he may look at this and say, yeah, I acknowledge that this was something that wasn't necessarily what the policy was asking for, and then that might help us determine what our choice is going to be in a formal document that we draft up. Does that sound reasonable to the board? Right, Dr. Hurst?
Absolutely, and I'm going to share a little bit, and Pete, if you would like to, you can jump in also. I know one thing I share with one board member is just this concept of metrics and our system being new. So when you speak of year to year, a lot of the metrics that we shared this past presentation with ENS 1 were new metrics. So there were things that we had not done before, so there was no comparison. So we mentioned that briefly. As I thought about it, and I was talking to one board member, we did a lot of work also during the summer establishing targets and measures. As we look back at those targets and measures, that work was done during the summer, and then as we started the school year, new metrics were developed. So even from the targets that we had set during the summer, those had changed through the year. So one of the things I will share is one of the reasons why you didn't see year-to-year comparison is because a lot of what we are measuring or our metrics this year, they're new metrics. So we didn't have anything to share except a baseline for this year. Want to add anything, Pete?
Yeah, I would just add that when I think about progress and I think about the terms coherence and consistency and current reality, which is how we've tried to present all the work the last year and a half, that we would certainly acknowledge that the year-to-year gap is there. But certainly the coherence and consistency in the system around STAR 360, the use of EdSite for entry tasks, coherence around foundational reading skills across the system, that's for us evidence of progress, but it's the current reality as well. And if the idea is around compliance and providing year to year, certainly we could have provided SBA data that was not information that it's not the current work. So we could certainly share that, but I guess as a teaching and learning team, we wouldn't believe that that would be our current reality. This really is where we're at.
I think maybe the challenge is the way it's worded. Maybe in the end, when we got into this year and the team was looking at, okay, we have to do ENS 1 and the year's not over. We have no SBA data for this year. How do we do this best and also fit into the requirements of the policy? And maybe in hindsight, there might be some suggestions even from Dr. Hurst about if the policy was worded a little bit differently, we would have we would be able to show data in a different way, or maybe we'd show data that would meet the policy, or change the timing of when the ENS report gets done, either one. But see, those are some things that going forward, we're going to have that ability when we do our calendar. Dr. Hurst will be able to say, hey, could we possibly do ENS at a different time? And for us to, I would caution the board making any major policy changes with these, because there was quite a process that was gone through with a lot of stakeholders, with the district, a lot of staff, in coming up with taking our previous ENS and really making them more clear and concise. And so if we were to change them too much, it almost might be like we're the state moving that mark, right? And I don't think we'd be very popular for that. So, right. But right now, I think the challenge is that we need to come up with an agreement as a board on which answer we feel is right for Dr. Hurst and what comments we want to include. So I chose 3, and I acknowledge that I struggle a little bit with the data, and so my hope is that at the next report, the data for me is a little easier to understand exactly what's being given. It was a little bit odd of being in the format it was of a PowerPoint presentation, rather than just like data tables and explanations. Maybe that's where I got lost a little bit. But I could easily be persuaded that there might be a different choice in there. I'm not dead set on 3, and I'd like to hear what the rest of the board has to say about that.
I think that's why I was the number 4. that it was insufficient for us to decide because of the two things of core and non-core, and the year to year. Both of those things for me were lacking.
What do you think, Ken?
After hearing a little bit more tonight, the discussion, reasons for changing the survey and stuff, I might look at the second comment a little bit more. I believe the district has been progressing with their, and meeting this and achieving the desired results.
So are you saying change from 1 to 2? Is that what you're saying?
For mine, yes.
So I guess I can start by how I word the answers. You'll notice, I'm sure the board's noticed it, but item number 1 has reasonable progress. Item number 2 just says progress. Item number 3 says a lack of reasonable progress. So there's steps, right? From my view, when I read that report globally, I can pick out areas and say this area was completely off, it wasn't addressed, but there was areas that were addressed, and I look at it as overall, the ends policy overall, not this item's not right and this item is, and I agree with this one and not that one, which I think all the comments that have been made are correct. It's just perception of where that all fits. From my view, the district is not making reasonable progress, but they have made progress. From my view, that I think it's clear that there has been progress made. The baseline's been set. There's a lot of positive things happening in the district. Our students are doing better this year than they did last year. And I put in my comment that I'm not satisfied, and I don't think the district is either with where we're at. But I think we have made progress in a greater degree. That's why it's written that way. There's a greater degree of progress expected from me as a board member, and I listed the 4 or 5 areas that I feel like for sure that there needs to be progress. And but from my view, I don't think I think that there was progress shown in that report in some areas, maybe not every area.
So were you failed or were you making progress?
I'm the item 2.
Okay.
That he's making progress, not reasonable progress from my standpoint. It's not the progress that I expect, but I believe that that the district has made progress. I don't think the statement that says they've made no progress between last year and this year is correct either.
And I think I can agree with that. One of the things I struggle with is really we're talking about 3 statements in this. There's the overarching statement, but then there's 3 after ends 1. And 1 says each scholar at every grade level will perform at or above the state or district standards in all disciplines. We've made progress toward that this year. I think the evidence showed that. All scholars will demonstrate evidence of continuous growth and improvement in their performance year over year. That one right there I struggle with because I don't know. I don't know if we progressed from last year because I didn't get a year over year feel from that. And the third item, all scholars will demonstrate transfer of knowledge and skills across disciplines. I don't even know how you measure that, how you show data for that, but if there was, I missed it. And so I would agree with Tony, but I would also make the statement that really only on one of those 3 can I say, yeah, we made some progress toward that. Not because I don't think we did. I didn't see evidence that I could say that one way or the other.
Yeah.
So I'm in agreement a little bit with Jen, which I think why I chose the one in between. But I also see the point you're making that it still says some progress was made, but then we state this is where we need progress in other areas.
So I guess my only thing would be the overarching statement is the most important statement of our policy, not the sub-statements. From my understanding of how we write policies. So the overarching statement is, in an environment of equity and respect, each scholar will graduate with the academic success and ethical behaviors to succeed as a responsible citizen and ready to compete in our global society.
Well, then I would have had to choose 4 based on that one.
Then
I disagree because I think the overarching is our broad statement, but then we get more specific in the ones below it. And I think those are the ones that were really, that's what we got data on, was the specific ones.
Yeah, but
not
you
the
can't
broad
just,
scope.
you can't just exclude that, because it is part of the policy. That's all I was pointing out.
So if I concluded, I'd say 1 out of 4 then showed progress or showed improvement.
You don't think they've made, that they show graduation rates and academic success in that report?
I don't know if they graduated with academic success. I saw the graduation numbers, but that was actually for ends 3, right? I don't know if I saw anything on ethical behaviors and responsible citizenship to be able to answer that. I don't know. That's why I say maybe I wasn't missing some of the data and not extrapolating it well, but that's where I'm at with it, is understanding how that data really fit every piece of it, and I struggle with it. I have no doubt we're doing really good things in our district. It's not about that. It's really about being able to look at that report and say, okay, based on this report, how do I answer this? And I hope this is helpful, and these conversations helpful for Dr. Hurst going forward, but this is just my opinion.
This might be easier to decide which comment or comments we're keeping first, and then go to the, where are we voting?
Yeah, I'm down with that. What do you think, Mike, though, before we go on?
You know, I was just gonna say, I like Tony, though hard to pinpoint, like you call it a drill down to each one of these subsections and the overarching, you said it was 1 of 4. Will there ever be each scholar at every grade level? That would be a virtual possibility. To say that there wasn't any progress would be incorrect. It's hard to even pick one of the comments made, because there's truth to all of them. But I think Tony did a very good job of delineating his expectations and what he expects to see. Hearing Dr. Hurst about the matrix and the baseline being set, I would expect this to be a lot more clear next year, or even if we change the timing of monitoring this, I think would also help the team provide more relevant data. But there was some progress made, and that's why I did number 2.
I think one of the things for me is that maybe it just needs to be brought down to a level that I can understand it. It would be like, we're at 1, 10 would be great. Our goal this year is 3. We got 2. You know, then it would have just been laid out for me. Okay, we wanted to get 3, we got 2, and so I could say, that's progress.
Justin, you listening?
But there's a lot of information that it just wasn't so clear for me.
It's difficult for me on some of those items, because the policy doesn't tell Dr. Hurst how to make the report. And so I struggle with, I personally didn't really like the format of the report, but I can't judge the policy because I didn't like the format of the report. I can only judge it based on the data, which I think the whole board's doing.
Yeah,
I think.
The format might be what made it difficult for me to get the data, is all I was saying. That
It's the first time I've seen we've got a report that looks like a PowerPoint. It's the second time, actually, but.
Right, first year. So, yeah, maybe we need to talk about what comments we want to keep. Let's start with that. We'll start. Tony, I'm sure, wants to keep his well-written comment.
Not the whole comment. There's a piece of it I want to take out. But.
Okay. What piece would you like to remove?
The part where I basically was I had a question that I wanted Dr. Hurst to see, but I don't really need it in the comment, about the philosophy of student conferences. That'll come up at a different time, I'm sure, but
okay.
Because it's asking for a direct response, and I don't think we need to have that in our comments. I just didn't know quite where to put it.
So,
and it wasn't part of his report, so.
Where it says being proactive with those students who need extra help, you would skip right to then, I would like to see increased progress in the following areas.
Yes.
There's 2 sentences you'd like to remove. Okay.
Where it starts, while it was not directly in your report. Yeah.
Okay. What do you think, Ken? What comments do you think should stay, or additional ones? Do you have?
I said, I like Tony's comments because he does hit on that where progress is expected, where a greater degree of progress is expected. He does hit on some of those points. So I would have to agree with quite a bit of that statement.
Okay. Jen?
I agree with Tony's statement, and I think that Dr. Hurst has heard and understands basically what I was saying in my comment, so I'm okay with removing my comment and keeping Tony's minus those couple of things that he wants to take out.
I agree. And I'm fine with that too.
My
comments, I think.
Is the district okay with the way I word? Do they agree with my percentages? I did the math in reverse, and so I just want to make sure that the district feels like I'm being fair.
I remember those percentages.
Okay.
Maybe, Dr. Hurston, one of the things we can add to our agenda item for the board retreat is you can help us understand your, I know you say, you have it written out where we want to be here this year with this item, and so that we're clear of what your measurement, not just your measurement, but what your actual number is you're shooting for on those. And maybe you can just briefly share that, remind us of that in the retreat, and then we'll know going forward.
Absolutely. We were just talking about that, myself and Pete, so we're prepared to do that.
Okay. So then the next question would be, what answer would we choose?
I personally think that we should keep some of whoever put the information about the year-over-year progress. I don't think I put that in my statement anywhere. So I'd for sure want to have that comment in there from my view.
Okay, and what about the other comments about that it was just math and reading or ELA that we were getting and not the other core,
I'm okay with that too.
the non-core?
I wouldn't want to keep, when you go to comment number 3, I think that was Rob's. But
The first half of his statement.
the bottom half where it says that I might not be reading the data correctly, I don't think we need to put any of that in there. But the first half of the comment, I think we should include somewhere.
Okay. I'm fine with keeping those sections as well.
I actually think Jen's was worded better.
Either one.
With the year over year, I would say.
Oh, it was Jen's add the year over year, sorry.
Yeah.
I would say I'm fine with including comment 1 in all of it as well. We want to make sure we're.
Okay.
Okay. So then what would be, we have 2, actually 3 now that have said they go to 2, actually 4, I think. So I think that the majority has said they choose answer 2 now based on the discussions. Because I think I heard it from Tony, you picked it. Ken, I think you said you would go that way, and I felt that I would, based on discussions, would move as well. Jen, just for the sake of the discussion, would you move where you were at with that, based on our?
I do see them making progress, so yes,
Okay.
I could go there.
So it sounds like there's a consensus that the answer is 2, the district is making progress, but but a greater degree of progress is expected in the following specific areas, and Tony did a really good job mentioning some specific areas. I wouldn't say that was exhaustive. Well, he came up with percentages and you didn't.
Oh,
so,
okay, next time I'll throw in those percentages so I can get my comment in there approved by Rob.
You got your comment in there.
I know.
So then with the comments, Talia, were we clear about what comments to include in there as well? Tony's minus the middle
And
section.
then we're going to bring this back to formally.
Please put
approve it,
Jen's
right?
before Tony's.
Hers was comment number 1.
Well, because mine was
By ranking.
later.
Okay, good.
President Simmons, could I offer a comment about comment 3? It's a new learning for me. On
Yes.
Friday, we were at an ESSA session at the ESD, 3 building principals and several assistant principals, and the state of Washington is going away from the word subgroups. They're actually moving to student groups. It comes from an equity perspective, so just it was a new learning for me, so I thought it was important that you're aware.
I'll be honest with you, I don't know where I came up with that because I hadn't really even heard that language. Was there something in the report that mentioned subgroups?
Subgroups is a commonly used term, and
I mean,
I'm
your
certain
guys'
you've heard
report.
it. I looked for it in our report and didn't identify it, so I went back to look at the end
I don't
to
know where
see
it
if it
came up
was
with it.
referenced in there.
It was in
Yeah.
a previous ends, for sure.
That's not where I got it either. I don't know, well, that's why I acknowledge it. Yeah, I don't know why I came up with subgroups. I think that, I actually had some conversation with Tony regarding the achievement gap, and I think that I have a different perspective of achievement gap than I used to, and I think that it did show that in the reports. The opportunity gap is a difficult one. There was nothing that really spoke to the opportunity gap, and that's a tough one to measure as well. I mean, we hope that we have no opportunity gap, that every one of our students has the same opportunities. And I hope that is the case, but I don't think it was addressed as well, so. But that is in our policy. Okay, are we ready to move on to N3 now? All right. So N3, I'll just read the policy itself. In an environment of equity and respect, each scholar will graduate with the academic success and ethical behaviors to succeed as a responsible citizen and ready to compete in our global society. More specifically, N3, personal responsibility and citizenship. Each scholar will have knowledge and will take responsibility for his or her academic success. Each scholar will participate sufficiently to enable effective learning, and each scholar will demonstrate ethical behaviors, treating others with dignity and respect. So on this, we were a little more together on this. We had 2 that chose answer 1 and 3 that chose answer 2. I'm going to read the first and third comment and ask Tony to read the second one. I'm kidding, I'll read it. Okay, so the first comment, according to your monitor and response document, there has been progress toward this goal, but there is still more that needs to be accomplished. Graduation rates, attendance, and community truancy boards show responsibilities of the students toward his or her academic success. Student engagement, depending on each building, has no way to measure this. There is not even a clearly defined goal district-wide, since each building has its own goals, but no evidence of accomplishment. Second comment, your leadership and vision over the past 2 years has brought new life and excitement to our district. I am witnessing our entire system being pushed to produce better outcomes for our students. While I understand it takes time to move the needle of student achievement, I believe you have made significant progress in creating a foundation that allows us an educational community. As an educational community, should be to thrive. You have, I think that's implemented, many programs and early warning systems designed to help students become more accountable to their own education and goals. I applaud your efforts in this area. Programs such as Pathway Development, added opportunities for increased rigor and career showcase events seem to be
met with.
Sorry, Tony.
I'm telling you, it's hard to type on the little tiny thing. On my iPad, it rolls up and it's hard to edit. Later, I need to do it on a computer.
I know what you're trying to say, I just don't even know how to say it, but to being met with enthusiasm from all parties involved.
It should be being, I think.
Seem to be being met.
Oh, okay.
Okay, with
Just-
that
just
being
go on.
said, here are a few areas that I expect to see continued improvement in as we accomplish these aggressive goals. Our graduation rate needs to increase. According to the data we received, approximately 40 to 60 of our students are not currently graduating on time, or possibly not at all. We need to see better results from our truancy boards. According to the data provided, over half of our students involved in those early prevention programs are not changing their habits. While your numbers on an average daily student attendance seem to be good, I have heard you state many times the negative impact chronic absenteeism can have on student success. You're on a roll here, Tony. I did not see any evidence that we are making headway in curbing that issue. Having 5% of our students not attending school each day, while on the surface seems small, could have a massive impact on the amount of our students failing classes and falling behind. There was no data provided to show of the 5% average not attending school each day, how many of those have missed more than 16 days during the school year? I remember that being a critical turning point in your past presentations. I'm looking forward to even more clarity of vision and direction from you as we drill down on more specific ways to help our students become responsible members of society. And the last comment, report did a good job of showing evidence of increased student participation through improved attendance and increased graduation rate. there needs to be more data around the ethical behavior aspect of this policy. That was my comment.
I was
think
the
I
first
knew I was going to
comment.
be following Tony's, so you know what else to say. So this one's a little bit easier for us, I think, to come up with our decision on what our answer is. But let's go ahead and talk about what comments we want to stay.
I think Tony's yes, with a few minor modifications.
Major.
Fat fingers, what I.
Just a spell check.
I don't know if he hit on the ethical behavior aspect that I think,
I don't know how you measure it, so I just don't know what to say.
I know.
It's difficult, but when we asked these to go back to the staff to make more concise, that never came back to us like, hey, I don't know how we're going to measure this. We shouldn't have this in here, right? There was an opportunity to do that. There's still an opportunity to do that, I guess, going forward. Ken, what do you think? What would you like to keep?
I like all three comments. I think all three comments fall in line. Again, I picked the first one, but I would have to change my decision to the second one, agreeing with all the comments.
Okay. Who else picked number one for this?
I may have, but I can't remember.
I did too.
You picked number one?
Two, he said.
Oh,
I
I'm two.
I must have picked number one then.
Do you want to stay with one or?
No, well, the majority's already at number two, so. I'm fine
So
with
what I would suggest,
it.
I
It
think
doesn't
that
change my comment in any way, so.
I think that Jen's comment above where it says student engagement was kind of redundant to what Tony said and what mine said. I would say Tony's with Jen's last two sentences and with my second sentence. That would be what I would suggest that we keep, if the rest of the board agrees.
Removing your first sentence.
Yeah, because I think that's.
I would agree with that. Maybe some paragraphs though, instead of one big old glob of.
Well, the problem is the formatting on this. You really should be, when we do it, it really should be listing, even on that other policy, whereas the items to improve should be listed as bullet points, but there's no way to do that, the way these comments are set up in SurveyMonkey, so you can't format it that way. So I agree with you, it needs to be formatted more. And
do you guys want Talia to kind of choose what she thinks the formatting should be? I mean, the thing is, this is going to come to our next board meeting for us to approve without us having a chance to give input on the formatting. So how do you want to determine that?
I would
Or
have
can we designate one person to do that for us?
if you look at mine, about 3/4 of the way down, where it has the continued improvement in as we accomplish these aggressive goals, and then what's that called? The two dots?
Semicolon?
It's not a semicolon, is it?
Colon?
It's a colon. I don't know what it is. Anyway, that's where you would normally list.
If you know the format you wanted, do you want to?
I can do it.
Fat fingers,
do the
can you
format
handle
and
that?
then Send it to Talia on how
There
you
may be
format
spelling
it.
errors in it when I get it done.
She'll check them.
You might want to get a PC or something where you can hit spell check. Are you okay with doing that then? Okay. So
And
Talia,
modifying the others to fit in there too?
The actual formatting end of it, how you want it formatted. Make it look pretty, Tony.
Do we want him to modify the other one then too? Or are we okay with the other one?
I want him to do them both how he meant to write them. If the rest of the board agrees.
Yes.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Good. Good job, board. Good discussions. So we'll move on to,
Can you email me the documents so I can cut and paste them a little bit? Thanks.
so yeah, so I won't be signing that tonight, obviously. GP9.
What?
We're on
Oh.
GP9, so it's, yeah.
D2?
Item D2, board self-monitoring. GP9 was our
Okay.
report. Now, this one should be simple. We all chose in compliance with this, and there was one comment. that states, "I feel that the board has worked hard to continue to gather information from all citizens. That being said, I feel that we should schedule more linkage opportunities next year." Does everyone agree with compliance
Ditto.
and keeping that comment?
Yes.
Nice. Okay. We're ready to move on to item E1, policy review. There are two policies in this, both based on discussions at the last board meeting and adding in EL20 as our new policy. So the easy one, BSR 4.1, just changed our old EL20, which was our high cap policy, to our new policy. And so that's the only change that was in that one, was the heading of it. If you go through GP 8.1, based on comments that were made and recommendations.
I do have a question on that one. Does the board only want that to be internal report? Or do we want internal report and direct inspection?
I would say, based on how the policy's written, it requires some external reporting, right?
Some direct inspection or external reporting?
Well, when we said we'll get even people to present on other, that's some external reporting.
So that would
What'd
be
you say?
3 then. I was just saying direct inspection. We can use external reporting, we've never used it before.
Would that be appropriate? Would that be external report? That's if the board asks someone to come in and judge compliance, so that would not be an external report.
Correct.
So why would you want to add direct inspection to this differently than, I mean, we have an opportunity to directly inspect any of our policies, but
Well,
why this one would you want to have in there?
To me, it fits more in line with EL14 and EL15, which is the 2 ELs that we use for direct. We have direct inspection actually listed. You can always use direct inspection, but that method lets the superintendent know that for sure you're direct inspecting those policies.
Well, and if we go to a school and do a site visit, we don't think of things in, like if we went through a building with Greg or something along those lines, and he points out very specific things, we're not seeing those specific things when we're there doing a site visit. I think it would be valuable to see something through that perspective as a direct inspection. I don't know if that's
Is that
what you
what
were
you're saying?
intending.
Because how do we do that with student conduct and discipline? Do we have a separate visit where we go and assess that?
Well, direct inspection could mean a whole bunch of things. It could mean what Jen was saying, but it could also mean that as an individual board member, you're directly inspecting that policy from time to time. And you're just letting, by policy, you can always use direct inspection for anything. All this is letting the superintendent know up front that you're for sure gonna have direct inspection when it comes to that policy. Doesn't mean you won't with the other ones. It's just setting an expectation from my view. My
So I would
memory
say
is
the
there's 3.
expectation for us is that we would always speak to our direct inspection on those policies then when we're doing the Survey Monkeys forum.
We should be.
So does the rest of the board want to add direct inspection as one of the monitoring methods for EL20?
I think I'd rather have it, and then we decide at the time whether we're going to be using it or not, as opposed to not having it and surprise, we want to do this.
Okay.
No, I agree. We should have it.
I'm okay with having it.
Okay, so the method will be the same as we have for EL14 and 15 as well. Any other change on that?
And then I have a question on the board agenda. Are we having our Monday, May 28th meeting, or did we move that to the 29th since that is a holiday? I just need to know what to put in my calendar.
I thought it already got changed. It didn't
Falls
get
to
changed
the
in this one.
following day.
Was that
We're doing the 29th then?
It's always the
Yes.
day after the
Day
holiday.
after.
Okay, then it's not correct in
What
the
we were
calendar.
talking about, that's where it got mistaken. It was May 9th instead of May 29th for the other one. That's why you were trying to say to me, but it was a different day. Okay. So let me first go through this, and you're right, and we can change that because this is just a suggestion, but let me go through what the changes were and why. So first, Tuesday, May 1st, we switched to Tuesday, May 8th, because that would be the Tuesday before our board meeting when we typically do site visits for the Hiawatha visit. We're good with that. Then everything else just moves a week down. So May 7th goes to May 14th, and we add EL 20, our new policy, because typically we monitor policies in the first board meeting of the month. The next one moved from, we changed it from May 18th through 20th to just May 19th, because that's really the only day we have the meeting. Friday's a travel day, Sunday's a travel day. May 14th changes to May 21st, and then May 21st changes to May 28th, but that one should be the 29th. Good catch. I think those were the only changes in there. Is the board good with those agenda changes?
Yep.
I mean, calendar changes? Okay. Capture all that, Julia? It's the same, just except for the 29th. Okay. So we will need a motion for the,
I make a motion that we go to
Revisions.
executive session. Oh,
no, the
Darn it.
motion to approve the revisions of those two board policies.
I motion we accept the revisions to items E1-1, E1-2 with the revisions stated to the executive system.
There's been a motion by Director Garza, and it wasn't so moved. Good job.
second.
Second by Director Stevenson. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. We're now going to recess for just 3 minutes to get the room ready for executive session. I wanted to ask, is there a need still to have an executive session to discuss the qualification of the?
No.
So can we remove that? So the executive session we're looking to do is actually 30 minutes, and for discussion regarding pending litigation and discussion regarding evaluation of staff, correct? Okay, so a little change there in just the amount of time that we're going to ask to go into executive session. So 3-minute recess, actually. Right at 9 o'clock, we'll go into executive session, if that works for the board.